On a Saturday night, my girlfriend Pam and I were hanging out with my dog, Tinkle, watching a movie. A cheesy rom-com. You know the kind, where one of the two tells the other one, "I'd swim across the Atlantic for you." So, needless to say, I wasn't paying that much attention. The room was dark, with only the glow of the TV as a source of light. We didn't allow ourselves to have our phones out while watching movies, so as much as I would like to scroll through social media or play that silly gotcha game I just downloaded, I couldn't. She watched my action flicks without distraction, so I should be able to make it through one sappy movie.
You're not thinking about playing with your phone, are you?
She asked, as she poked me in the side. What? No, I would never. I was just thinking that I could pet Tinkle better if he were on my lap, I said as I reached down to pick up Tinkle and put him beside me. I gave her a sly smile as I gave Tinkle some scritches. We were almost done with the movie when Tinkle stood up a bit in my lap. I looked down when I felt his claws dig into my leg a little bit. I poked him, trying to get him to relax, but when I touched him he was rigid and wouldn't soften to my touch. I tried to study him a bit in the low light of the room. He was staring at the sliding glass door that opened into the backyard to my right. "What is it, boy?" I whispered. I turned to look through the window, expecting a raccoon in the yard, or maybe a coyote. We did live pretty far from the city, so sometimes they do wander into our neighborhood. I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. I can only describe what I saw as a tall, thin creature, darker than the starless night sky outside. It had large, protruding, yellow orbs for eyes, and it stood hunched over looking through the sliding door. Its arms had to be every inch of 6 feet, and I couldn't even account for its body. Every muscle inside of me tensed as the sheer terror of the unknown washed over me. I couldn't run. I couldn't hide. I could only see. The horror's wet eyes slowly slid from the TV and met mine. Just as my heart slid into my stomach, the creature's body shifted and disappeared. I'm not really sure how to explain it. Like it slowly moved piece by piece, like sand being blown about during a windstorm. Then it was gone. It felt like an eternity, but it couldn't have all lasted more than a second or two. Pam must have sensed something, or felt the couch move as I tensed. She reached over to me and Tinkle.
What's...
Pam couldn't finish her sentence after she startled Tinkle. Tinkle quickly calmed down. It was like he was making up for lost time barking at what was no longer there. I could feel myself breathing again, like I'd been holding my breath for far too long. "Holy shit!" I said as I let out a sigh.
What happened?
Pam asked. I started, but paused. I'm not sure. I saw something outside. I think?
Tinkle sure seems to think so, don't you, Tinkle?
Pam said playfully as she gave Tinkle some aggressive pets. I thought for a second, and it did seem like a dream, or my imagination, or something. I looked back out again, and nothing was there. I guess it just looked like something was out there? Shadows or something playing a trick on us?" I said as I joined in the petting of Tinkle, who seemed to be just as happy as he'd ever been. "We can get back to the movie. Sorry,"
Yes, please. We're at the good part.
she said as she rewinded the movie for a few minutes and started playing it again. I looked at the TV screen, but I wasn't actually watching. I was trying to reason it away, make sense of what I had seen. But I couldn't. Sure, the body, the blackness that I saw, I could say that was shadows or something. But those eyes I saw seemed like they were nearly pressed up against the glass. And they were so big. I took one quick look back outside. Nothing was there. I sighed to myself, decided to forget it, and get back to the movie. Besides, Tinkle seemed over it. I guess I should be too. On the following Friday, I'd just gotten off work when I received a text from Pam.
What movie are we watching tomorrow?
I hadn't really thought about it yet, but it was my turn to pick a movie. I was thinking of a horror movie. Those tend to make her sit close to me, and if I don't try to spook her by imitating sounds from the movie, I'm usually rewarded for my good behavior later that night. My mind started to wander into less wholesome thoughts when I remembered. I'd almost forgotten about the eyes staring at me through the glass doors. I shook my head violently at the thought. "Action movie it is," I said as I texted her back. "It's all about family," to which she responded with a frown emoji. Saturday night arrived, and it was great. My favorite action movie playing on the big screen, with Pam and Tinkle snuggled up next to me on the couch, as I quoted dialogue from memory.
"Tonight we dine in hell."
We were halfway through the movie when I felt Tinkle become tense. I was so engrossed in the movie, I had already forgotten the feeling of last week. I took a quick glance down at Tinkle, and he was staring toward the glass doors again. I need to get some blinds or curtains for that, I thought to myself, and decided to ignore it and go back to the movie. A few minutes later, I heard a soft growl from Tinkle. I looked down and he was staring out the window. I shouldn't look, I told myself. I gave Tinkle a pet and turned my eyes back to the TV, though it was getting harder to pay attention. I heard a tapping on the glass a few feet away from me. I slowly looked over at Pam, but she didn't seem to notice. She was still watching the movie. I shook my head. This has to be in my mind, I said to myself. But then I heard the tapping a second time. I shouldn't look, I told myself again as I kept my eyes glued to the TV. The tapping came again, and louder. It was about to break the glass. It didn't even sound natural anymore, like it was echoing in my head. I looked over at Pam. She seemed oblivious to the sound, giggling at the ridiculous car chase on screen. Is it all in my head? I asked myself. It has to be, right? My mind is playing tricks on me. It has to be. But then I looked. There it was again. It seemed closer this time. I froze again, my muscles seizing up on me. I was stuck in my own head, paralyzed with fear. I tried to widen my vision to include its black body, but my eyes just wouldn't adjust. My gaze was locked into its putrid yellow orbs. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding. I thought I was going to die.
What is it you like about these movies so much anyway?
Pam asked. I snapped back to reality. Pam's question had released me from my trance. I blinked and I saw the creature's body dissipate into bits of black sand, shifting away from the patio. What? What? I turned and asked as the climactic explosion burst across the screen.
Why do you like these movies so much? They just keep getting more and more ridiculous. I bet the next time they'll be driving cars in space or something.
Pam replied. I caught my breath as the terror began to fade. I looked at the TV screen and then back outside. Nothing was there. Yeah, you might be right. Heck, I hope so, I said, relaxing back into the couch.
You hope so? You hope so? Wouldn't that be too over the top?
Never, I replied. Even though the conversation was a good distraction, I couldn't stop thinking about the shape outside. Was I going crazy? Was something wrong with me? I looked down at Tinkle. He had slumped back down between the two of us on the couch. Maybe I'm imagining something, but Tinkle couldn't possibly be, right? My mind was moving 100 miles a minute as I tried to make sense of it. But I couldn't. And I just couldn't forget about those eyes. Saturday evening came around again, and Pam was ringing my doorbell. "Why, hello, pretty lady," I said as I opened the door.
Ditto.
She replied, stepping through the threshold. As we entered the living room, she noticed the new curtains I had put up.
Trying to keep the boogeyman out?
She asked. Not wanting to seem scared, I replied, "No, the sun mostly. It's pretty bright if I try to take a nap during the day." Pam made a face like she didn't believe me. And maybe a little bit for the boogeyman, but mostly for Tinkle, so he doesn't get spooked.
Well, won't Tinkle be just the happiest little dog on the street now?
"I guess he will," I said as I looked over at Tinkle, who tilted his head at me in confusion. The pizza arrived about 30 minutes later, and I tipped him a little extra. I was feeling good about tonight. Pam had rented another sappy rom-com. This one was from the UK, so I knew it would be extra sappy due to the accents. Time passed, and I let myself get caught up in the cheesy love story. I was feeling pretty good. We were halfway through the movie, and Tinkle hadn't shown signs of fear. The titular male figure was figuring out what he had done wrong, starting the grand romantic gesture of racing to the airport before the heroine got on the plane to go back to her home country. Then I heard it. The tapping on the glass. I didn't shift. I didn't move. I acted as though it wasn't there. I didn't look at Pam or Tinkle to see if they noticed. I just kept watching the movie. I wasn't going to let fear ruin everything. The tapping came again, louder. This time I heard Tinkle make a short whine. I looked down as I felt him trying to burrow behind me on the couch. I shook my head and kept looking at the screen, determined not to look. The tapping came louder and more rapidly again, and I refused to look away from the TV. The tapping stopped. I let out a sigh of relief. I looked over at Pam, and she was smiling, watching the man on television get down on his knees in the airport. I smiled too, and turned back to the TV. "I love you," said the man on the TV. Loud bangs erupted from the wall near the patio. "Ah!" I yelled as I jumped off the couch, panting and wide-eyed as I stared at the closed curtains. I couldn't catch my breath. I didn't know what to do. I looked over at Pam. Surely she had something to say. But Pam just looked over at me, calmly.
You might as well open the curtains. He hates it when he can't watch the movie too.
I stopped. My mind couldn't process what she was saying. My heart dipped, and I found it hard to take a deep enough breath to calm myself. "What?" I slowly asked. Pam paused the movie and pointed towards the curtains.
Go on, open the curtains for him.
At that moment, I didn't know what else to do other than open the curtains. I walked over, reached for the guide rope, and pulled on it, parting the thick fabric. There they were, the two yellow-stained orbs staring back at me, unmoving. I was frozen again. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. I was just locked onto that ominous figure. I felt Pam reach her arms around my waist and press her chest into my back.
Don't worry about Phil. I'll protect you.
She squeezed me in a tight embrace as I turned to face her. My mouth was open in a silent scream.
I don't know what I'd do without you. I'd swim across the river Styx for you.